Welcome back to the She Does This podcast. I'm your host, Jordy Lucas, and I have some explaining to do because we've been out of your ears for about a month now. A few weeks ago, my daughter caught a cold, which I then caught off her, and I sounded awful for about 2.5 weeks, so I spared you all from hearing my voice. And then last week, she had to get her adenoids taken out, so obviously work was put on the back burner, but it meant we didn't produce a podcast. But we're back today, and we have some really exciting guests coming up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. On the site this week, I spend 5 minutes with Play School star Rachel Coops, who shares her passion for yoga and why it is so amazing for mums. We also share the very popular beauty trend that is a complete waste of money. Now to this week's guest. I am so hugely passionate about encouraging women to take better care of themselves and to take some of life's pressures off themselves. I feel like we put so much pressure on being the best mothers, friends, daughters, employees that we can be, that we often just burn out and cause ourselves a lot of undue stress and anxiety. I think as mothers, this is something that we're all guilty of. So when the opportunity came up to talk to Midwife Cath, I was so excited to get her on the podcast. I read her book the first 6 weeks when I was pregnant with my little girl, and it just made sense. And it took so much pressure off just about the impending life change that was about to happen, and it gave me permission to share that load with my partner, with my parents, and really surround myself with a village, as Cath calls it. So today, Cath and I are going to be chatting about pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, and beyond. We also had quite a few listener questions come in for her, which she will be answering at the end of the episode. Here is my chat with Midwife Cath. Now, I have to start this episode by saying thank you to you, Midwife Cath. I got so much out of reading your book when I was pregnant with my little girl. I want to talk all about that and about pregnancy and breastfeeding and all of those things. But how have you been? How has the year started off for you?
Very, very well. And thanks for reading my book. That book has a little story of its own, you know. I never ever thought I'd write a book, and a publicist phoned me or emailed me actually and said, would you like to write a book about babies? And I thought, oh my God, it will just be so big. I said, can I cut it down to the first 6 weeks? And it's been a great little Bible for parents because it's just easy and simple, you know?
Yeah. I felt like it took a lot of the pressure off, especially your bed, bath, bottle routine. It took off a lot of pressure from mum, I think.
Yeah. I get it wrong too. I'm always like, what comes first? So it's the bath bottle and bed, or breast. People can do the breast or express breast milk, whatever they want, but it's all the B's. And I've been doing that for a long, long time, and I know that it works well because I've been doing it, I think, for about 30 something years, and it was really nice to share that very basic routine, and also get the partners involved to actually have that physical connection with the baby, bathing the baby, dressing, wrapping and feeding the baby and putting the baby to sleep. And, I have lots of partners, grandparents, whoever does the BBB come, write to me. So it's very nice.
Yeah. Going back to the very beginning of your career, what made you want to become a midwife?
Well, I just wanted to be a midwife. I used to read my brother's medical books, and it just fascinated me, the body and how it worked. And then I had this enormous collection of dolls, and not a lot of, like, I can still see them, they're all in the corner. And then I started to baptize them all, being so I used to do the baptismal. Mum would say, Cath's in there baptizing the dolls again, So it was, and my mother had a great influence on me about midwifery. I'm the youngest of 8 children, and she used to say, you just love it. And I did, and I have, every single day. So, and I've always tried to do something a little different, but at the end of the day, always listen to the mum, like, how are you? what in labour, how are you feeling? Not this is what I think you should do. It's so I've been very lucky to work with some great people and be present at some amazing births.
You touch on this in your book, how your schools of thought on certain things have changed over the years. How has midwifery evolved over your career?
The art itself hasn't, because it doesn't need to. In fact, the way I was taught, I probably did the exact opposite once I, started to practice. My idea of childbirth was that it was a natural process for women. And when I was training, I saw that women were put into bed and, they had routine episiotomy, routine forali vaginal examinations. And I just didn't like that. I just didn't think that was right for women, because my mum was a feminist. She didn't even know it, but she was. And always the right of the women. So an ad came up in the paper, and it was to set up a private birth centre here in Melbourne. And I did. And there I started to, really help mothers, women and other staff members to see birth as what it is. And that is, it's women, and we are the centre of the universe as women and mothers. And it's not only doing well in birth, but it does help to have a really good birth experience. So midwifery has changed in a way that, of course, anaesthetics have changed. So epidurals are a mainstay of birth, and that is a very good thing, because, women who don't want to have the pain or go through the pain actually don't have to. Women who are just so scared of labour, which we all are a little bit, but who are pathologically afraid of labour, there's actually an option for an elective caesarean section. And I think that's very good, because that wouldn't have been done probably even 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think, it stays the same, but there's other things that have improved. And certainly, the postnatal care of women, certainly infection has decreased. Breastfeeding we know more about, and we want to encourage, women to breastfeed, and it's possible for a long time.
Reflecting on my experience with pregnancy and childbirth, I feel like there was so much emphasis on that part of the journey and not a lot of focus on what comes next. You go to birthing classes and you speak to your doctor about things that are going on in pregnancy, but there's very little education on what comes after. And I truly believe that I just went into a complete state of shock when I saw Evie for the first time. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there needs to be more education and awareness of what comes next after birth?
And you're not alone by having that feeling of shock. Most women are like, wow, that was, and there are some women who come out and say, it was amazing, I had an amazing birth. But, you hear about sleep deprivation and you think, oh, I've partied, maybe 2 nights in a row. I can cope with that. But it's party after party after party after party of sleep deprivation. Yeah. And that is the hardest thing for women, because they can't, it's hard to actually think properly when you're so tired and you're responsible for a life. Preparing women for the postnatal period. I certainly, as part of my classes that I do for cell care, I do childbirth, I do breastfeeding, and I do postnatal, because they are all separate and you can't put them all in together. There's too much information. Plus, our heads are in a different space for each. Breastfeeding is a very good example that, a lot of women say, what, I'll think about that later. And how hard could it be to put a baby to suck your breast, your nipple, but as there's lots of complex issues that happen. Look, I think it's very important to talk about the postnatal, and I suppose I educate, but I do a lot of work with women postnatally, and I want to hear their story and work it out for them, like what happened, and settle that down in their head, or else you go through the night feeds thinking, why did that happen to me? And why did I have this? And why did I have that? So, and also just a side thing, not everyone falls madly in love with their baby straight away. And a lot of women feel quite guilty about that. But again, it's not an abnormal feeling.
Definitely not. I mean, when I had Evie, I knew that I loved her and wanted to protect her and nourish her, but I think the level of shock that I felt did get in the way of me feeling that overwhelming love that I have for her now. And I think that talking about it and normalizing it is really powerful for mums who have that experience.
And also that it's not wrong, it's wrong to hurt a baby. It's not wrong to feel that you didn't initially bond, because after going through labour and birth, some women just say, okay, I can see the baby's fine. That's nice. I'll get there soon. Yeah. So it's always such a lovely process. I still get shivers, when I see a new baby and new parents for the first time. It's fantastic.
It is amazing. You've got an amazing job. We'll talk more about breastfeeding shortly, but I am keen to know your opinion. I feel like, and I've had this conversation with my mum, I feel like mothers of my generation, we almost make it harder for ourselves in terms of Googling forums, seeking advice online. What is your opinion about social media and mums getting their advice and tips and education online?
Well, the thing is, it's here. So I really encourage women to use it wisely. So if it's Mary Lou from Minnesota saying something, well, it probably isn't right. It may be. But also to surround yourself with the village, because the village, whoever that is very important to you. And, on my Instagram, I like to educate as well as putting a photo of the royals up every now and then. And, but it's, I know a lot of women a lot of parents will go and buy a gadget, like whatever the gadget is, buy a gadget to help a baby sleep before they come and access me for a consultation, which I always find very interesting, because they Google, how to get a baby to sleep, and something comes up like, this will make your baby sleep in 2 days. And of course it can't. So, and look, I really think if women get help early, and I mean first days of being home, and I do that a lot, going into the home, or, talking, Skyping, Zoom, whatever, and actually setting up the story of what's going to happen, sort of leaving hospital where it is and moving into your own environment, and how the baby is going to change. Because, a lot of people still think that babies feed and go to bed, and feed doesn't happen. And it's, a reality check of saying that they can party pretty well,
One thing that shocked me the most was the amount of noise that my daughter made in her sleep as a newborn. Just little things like that you just have no idea about. Yeah.
My theory about that, little babies are noisy to keep us alert, because when you have a baby, and if ever there's a bed and a pillow close, like you're asleep literally before you hit the pillow. I mean, you have such a deep sleep, and a baby squirming and grunting and all of that just gets your body ready never to sleep properly again. But do you know what I mean? It just keeps that. Our partners don't wake up, and because their body hasn't been hormonally changed. So as mothers, we have, and our ear is open. And look, I can remember my son just putting the key in the door when he lived here, and I was awake, you know.
Yeah. Even now, 18 months on, if my daughter wakes up at night, my fiance Henry doesn't hear anything. And I'm like, oh, we had a really rough night last night. He goes, oh, did you? I didn't even hear anything.
Totally. Or they say we've had a great night. And you're like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? But you know, that's how it is. And you know, back in the cave, the men went out and did the hunting, and we fed the baby. So it's not as though it's a sexist thing. It's just reality, you know. And I really encourage one tired person in the house, because two tired people don't mix. So, and that going back to my BBB, the partner to do the bath, bottle and bed, settle the baby, and then go to bed. And then when we wake up, as we do the rest of the time. But, you know, that sort of balance works really well.
Let's talk about breastfeeding. I have been extremely lucky with my breastfeeding journey, and I credit my success, if you want to call it that, to my auntie, who is a midwife, and she came over one day when I had my baby at home, and she spent a full day with me, you know, getting really good latches and just getting into really good feeding habits. And that was something that I completely missed out on in hospital. It just feels like a hospital is this conveyor belt of birth, you make sure that the baby is healthy, and then you're sent home. Why aren't we getting that consistent support in hospitals? And do you think that that is the reason why maybe a lot of women just give up? Because I definitely would have if it wasn't for my auntie.
Well, I've done this for 4 decades now, and I was actually taught by women who'd done it for 4 decades. And so I've been very, very lucky to have good people around me, and also willing to learn. That's another thing that, you know, you can't just go by, this is the way I do it. One thing my mother taught me is that every mother is different, and every baby in the family is different. Breastfeeding, so lactation is a given. We all lactate, but how much we lactate is another story. The issues in the hospital is confliction, advice given by one midwife, another may come in and put her
2 cents in.
And, you know, after running obstetric units and the birth centre and the things like that, we had one sort of song sheet, and that was it. It was like, I go in and see Mary and baby Bruce is doing this. And so it would be that continuity of care, which, look, I know they try to do it. They try very hard to do it. But a lot of the time it's not working. And I'm not sort of connected to the institutes that teach the young midwives, so I don't know how they're going. But, you know, it's what you're saying about with your auntie. It doesn't matter at some level who it is. You need a woman who has either a lot of compassion, but you need a lot of love, and you actually need to embrace the mother and care for her.
Yeah.
And that caring by, you know, sort of physically or not physically, putting your arms around her and helping her, even with a daily SMS or how are you? And it's easy. It can be easy because I think everyone's so busy in hospitals, and it's in and out, and the women are supposed to sort of work out, you know, how to do it themselves. And you do need guidance, because not only on the first day you will be in some sort of pain, whether it's your vagina or cesarean section, and the day your milk comes in is like, it's like, what on earth's happened? And like you, I had you know, and it wasn't because I was a midwife. I just had a seamless breastfeeding journey, and you know, I'm very passionate about breastfeeding. Because the first 6 weeks can be hard, but when you get it, when you nail it, it's fabulous, and you can keep going. Is that what you found? You know, once you got it grounded.
Yeah, and my daughter still breastfeeds morning and night. She just
fantastic.
loves it.
But what's interesting, Jordy, is that there's a lot of pressure to breastfeed. And then if you start telling people, even in another 6 months, that you're breastfeeding, it's weird.
Yeah.
People see it as weird. Now, I have a problem with that because I think it's a very personal thing and women should do what they feel right with their child. But it's seen as a bit weird, but it's not. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is so funny that you say that because I follow a woman who breastfeeds her toddler, and she posted the other day about how people need to stop commenting that she's breastfeeding her toddler because it's her toddler, no one else's.
She's not doing anything bad.
No.
At all. In fact, bonding with that baby or toddler, it doesn't matter. It's her business.
I think social media just gives people this sense of entitlement to pass their judgment onto especially other mothers. I find that so unbelievable that we all feel that pressure as mothers. So why would you then make some other woman feel shitty about the choices that she makes? Anyway, moving on. We are talking today about your partnership with Tommy Tippy. You've jumped on board with them as a milky mentor. What does that involve?
Well, it's did you see the video?
Life?
Yes. Yeah, which is, it's absolutely fantastic. And I think at some level people will find it like that, it's sort of in your face. But it's a wonderful collection of women who can and who maybe can't breastfeed, and whatever they can, it's okay.
Yeah,
and I've said to the ladies associated with it that there could be another one afterwards because there's a lot of bad things that happen, not bad things, but a lot of painful things that happen with breastfeeding: bleeding, cracked nipples, mastitis, engorgement, painful letdown. So I love that video because it is fast, it's there, it shows you everything, and you get the message very quickly. A lot of women should see it. And then I think we need to teach about the other things that happen because, it's like, a lot of women say, I just didn't think it would be this bad. I didn't know this. And even though they could be my patients and they say that, and I'm like, well, I don't actually say I did too, but I know I've discussed it. And going back to exactly where we started is there's a block. We just don't want to know about anything after childbirth. We just have to deal with what's going on. But the Boob Life a video is just, you liked it, yeah?
Yeah, I loved it. Oh,
yeah, it's great. It's really great. And it's not just Anglo,
Yeah, it's everyone.
It's everyone. And as it should be, because, it's just women, and it's our choices. Amazing.
And I think it normalized, breastfeeding, bottle feeding, formula. It normalized it all because there's a whole spectrum of ways that we can feed our babies, and as long as our babies are fed and nourished, that is all that matters.
There's so much guilt associated with motherhood, which why why do we have to feel guilty? And at the end of every day, not that my son's married now and left home, but when I was a young mum and I'd had a teenager, I always used to say, I tried my hardest today, I did my best, and I'm loving it. And be really mindful of every day. I know that sounds over the top, which I am a little bit, but I really wanted to be a good parent. Parenting it's for life, isn't it?
It is. And it's tough because you want to be the absolute best parent that you can be. But you're so right that you can get caught up in the day-to-day, and then you do have that guilt of, I wasn't as good as I could have been today.
Yeah, I know there were days it was rainy and my son was like, school, don't worry about it. Let's sit home and watch TV. There's just some good things you can do. Not always wagging school with your mother, but, just... having memories, that's what it is for me. it's creating memories for your child and going through different environments, traveling, well, not so much now, but traveling a lot. Even if it was to down the street or down to East Gippsland, there was always, there's memories. And I think that's so important for children, because I have a lot of memories as a child, and I think you need to build positive memories for children.
That's great advice. We've got some listener questions.
Yeah.
So number one was from a listener. Apart from reading your book, of course, what is your advice for the first 6 weeks?
Get help early. It really is to get help early. And it's not always, someone to come in and help you breastfeeding. It might be someone, to clean your house, and it's not just buying people in. It's like your mum and auntie, uncle, sister, brother, in-laws, whoever. But set the village up, because I think what's really hard, and I'm sure you agree, Jordy, is that you don't realise that you actually all day, and you think, oh my God, I haven't had a shower, know, and this little baby takes up so much time. So probably my other one is hop up, have a shower, put your lippy on, and be ready for the day, even if you're getting into clean pajamas. Have a shower. It really helps our mind, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
it does.
So having that help, or having, friends, parents, having company, I think is really important for new parents.
Because it can feel incredibly isolating, can't it?
Yeah. Some women may not have a good relationship with their mother or mother-in-law. And I've certainly done home visits when the mum's in one room, the daughter's in another, and I'm like, okay, guys, let's come here and work it out.
Yeah.
And one particular lady, she said she's just doing all these stuff. I said, write her a list. She just wants to help you. She goes, oh, okay. And she came out and she gave her mum a list of like 350,000 things she wanted done. Yeah. And her mum was like, oh, that is fantastic. I'll get off now and go and do that. So something as simple as appreciating people, but giving them something to do. And when you get to my age, you actually know what they need. They need food. They need the clean, washing done. And the baby can be left to them. And if they need help, it's there.
Yeah. One thing that I'm sort of the first girl in our group of high school friends that has had a baby. And one thing I will do is take food over that can be reheated and put in the oven. Absolutely. Like that is something I will do for all of my girlfriends when they have their babies.
You know what? I was on the project. Look, I don't know when it was, 2 years ago. And I think Carrie said, what's the best thing? I said, make lasagna.
Yes.
I mean, new parents will get that, is because after you've had a baby, you've got the freezers either full of breast milk or lasagna, because it is easy to eat, isn't it? You can eat, it's good food. Your partner usually likes it. I agree.
Next question we had was, does antenatal expressing give you a better chance at breastfeeding in terms of supply?
No. Antenatal breastfeeding, antenatal expressing is to go in with some colostrum, especially for women who have gestational diabetes, because when a baby comes out or is born and the mum is gestational diabetic or a type 1 diabetic, sometimes their blood sugar goes boom like that.
Okay.
So it's routine for those babies to have their blood sugar, little prick test done to see what their blood sugar is. If it's low, in the past, a formula may have been given to the baby. So now what we're saying, express some colostrum. So if the baby needs it, it's got some of your colostrum. It doesn't have an impact on afterwards. It's just about now. And it doesn't mean your colostrum is all gone, because when the baby is born and sucks, our body's very clever, because the breast and the colostrum is ready around 24 weeks, just in case we have a prem baby. And I'm so sort of, Mother Nature is just amazing. And so because it's all ready, but the other thing is not to sort of go gangbusters with it, because a lot of stimulation of the nipple can potentially stimulate labour. So it's about, maybe once a day, just putting it and just getting a little bottle, or some of the midwives at the hospital will give some empty syringes, with a cap on it, no needle, and just you can express into that, put it in the freezer and then take it all in. But it's not compulsory, and women have a choice, of course, but it doesn't reflect how you're going to breastfeed after you've had the baby.
So what are some things that can help if a woman is experiencing low supply?
The best thing is the baby.
Okay.
It's just the baby. You can go, there's so many bits and pieces all around, which cost a lot of money too, and can also lead to a little bit of disappointment. So I make sure that the baby is on frequently, the mother eats well and drinks a lot of water. Even lay in bed or lay on the couch, not run around, go shopping. The 6 weeks after you've had a baby, it's called confinement for a good reason. And that is actually to care for the mother. I think that's got a bit out of control as the generations have come along, and there's a lot of pressure because you see someone on day 2 in a pair of shorts and you think, are you kidding? I can't even get my old undies on, So it's not about starving yourself or getting skinny. It's just not about that at all. It's about resting, establishing breastfeeding, have your baby close to you, and eating well and lots of fluid, and that's how it's always been done. So breastfeeding just hasn't been invented, as we know. It's been happening a long time, but I just feel sometimes people are trying to reinvent the wheel by having some fads and some things that put in women's head that it's going to help.
Yeah.
Next question. You've obviously got an incredibly rewarding job, but how have you dealt with patients who haven't had that happy ending with their babies?
Well, unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience in that, because obviously the longer you work, the chance to do it. And look back in the 70s, there wasn't ultrasounds, and, obstetric care was great, but it nowhere near what, antenatal care we have here. You see, the thing when you're a midwife, you can't be afraid of that. So it's not my pain. It's not my grief as a midwife. My role as a midwife is to help and hold this couple and give them support. Now, I don't know why, but it's something I can do. You've got to separate, not to a point where, I would be very connected, but like I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't get, you feel very sad, but it's not about you grieving with the family. It's not like that. It's you looking after them and holding them through the grief. And I'm not, again, being sexist against men. It's such a lonely death for women because our body has changed. Most cases we've felt the baby move and or heard the heartbeat. And it doesn't matter even if it's a 9-week miscarriage or a 40-week fetal death in utero. It is a baby, and it's wanted, and it has been thought about and planned. The most important thing, as I said, is that it's not my grief. I deal with that separately, so I can be okay for them, and I can talk to them openly, and and make sure if it's an older baby, or if it's a baby that they want to see, they can keep seeing the baby until they feel happy. Because I can tell you, in the 70s, probably 80s and before, those women never saw their baby. And you talk about grief, it's not grief, this is just pain, and it's terrible. Yeah, and I keep in contact with a lot of the mums that, it's just that, well, let me tell you, I went to the footy on the weekend, and one of the dads who lives in Queensland, I looked after he and his wife, and they'd lost a baby. And just because we follow the same footy team, we've always SMS'd, and, he was coming down and we SMS'd, and, we were going to catch up. But there's always that sort of, it's an incredible bond you have with family, and it's not as though you go around talking about it. It's that silent sort of, togetherness.
Yeah. Well, you've held them through their most.
Absolutely. I know, painful. It's awful. Yeah.
Another question we had was from a listener who has had a C-section because of baby size and labour failed to progress, and Bub was getting distressed.
Yeah.
What are her chances in her second pregnancy for an even bigger baby?
All the above are possible. And also it's possible to have a vaginal birth. So, when I said earlier that, every pregnancy is different, every baby is different, so every labour is different. So first of all, she would be offered a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after Caesar. And, everything's weighed up to see if she's tracking to have a big baby. But it's all about her care and the trust that she has with her medical team, because the outcome may be, let's give it a go, and have a Caesar if we get to point X, or let's have a Caesar straight away. So they're usually, and you never say never. And I was taught that very, very early in my career, when a lady was about 5 foot and her husband was about 7'10", and they came in and I'm like, she's never going to have a baby for time. But you know what? She popped out a 9-pound baby with no stitches. And so, you know what? Those things teach you things. Labour is about a live, healthy mother and a live, healthy baby.
Yes.
End of story. The way we give birth disappoints some women, I understand, and some women get very angry, I understand. But it's about having both of those.
I had a cesarean for a number of reasons, mostly my baby size, but also I was declining in health towards the end of my pregnancy, and it was recommended for both of us to have a cesarean. And I feel like it's very uncommon because I have zero guilt. I have zero disappointment.
Yeah. No.
But often people, when I talk about my birth, they approach it with me as if I'm about to tell them that I was disappointed.
Or the worst day of your life. It's like, no. I agree with you. Yeah, totally.
Like there was no part of me when there was medical advice given to me that this is what is safest for you and your baby.
Yeah. I agree.
That wanted to defy that.
And so sometimes people want to hear the gory story of, I fought and, I tried. And it's like, the doctors, midwives of today are so well trained. Obstetrics has come from the 60s and 70s where it was okay to now where it's just, what we know. See, someone like you would be just keep going in the 70s, you'll be okay. And women didn't labour for hours, they laboured for days. We didn't have monitors to see how the baby was tracking. It was, and I suppose when I hear people, either laughing at women had a Caesar or saying, oh, you aren't a real woman and all that sort of stuff, you go, you know what? That's not right, because not that long ago, these people wouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
So I think be grateful that we have, forceps. I know they're not great. We have vacuum extraction. And I also know that having a Caesar and the capacity to do quite a big abdominal surgery and recover quite quickly.
It was incredible, the recovery.
And that's how much we have progressed, because it was, women would be in for 2 weeks.
And just taking Panadol.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah.
Finishing off, what has been a career highlight for you? I'm sure there's many.
Oh, this today. No. Look, you know what? Having my own baby has obviously been a career, because I was so involved. I don't know. I would say setting up the birth centre, and you see, I introduced double beds to hospitals, and we never had a baby in a bed there. babies were either born on the floor, and doctors didn't know what to get on the floor. You know, we had babies in the shower, the bath. We had babies in the car park, and the car, and over the phone, and just to be in charge of that. And I was quite young, like I was 27, and I sort of thought, I know what to do. I thought, well, I just go with my instinct, and to set that up and have the most amazing birth after birth after birth after birth, and see women labor, and it didn't mean that they all had a short labor, they were long, but we got through it. So that was 31 years ago. It has defined me. I don't know, it was fantastic.
Well, Midwife Cath, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast this week. Just personally, a big thank you for everything you've taught me reading that book. And yes. I know you're going to continue to do some amazing things with Tommy Tippy as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jordy. Lovely to talk to you too.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of She Does This. If you have loved this episode, please rate, review and subscribe. And you can catch up on all of our other episodes wherever you get your podcasts. I will chat to you next week.